Hello and welcome to Anime Style. I am Garion Reaver. If you are not familiar with MILGRAM, you should go and watch the first Anime Style I did on it, linked in the description. That explains what it is, what we're dealing with, and what I'm trying to do here. In brief summary, 10 prisoners, magic space prison, they're all killers, can they be forgiven? Now, who's ready to discuss child prostitution? I know I'm not. At time of recording, I have only seen Trial 1 of the 2 trials that are out. That means no spoilers in the comments. As I have only seen Trial 1, I know I have an incomplete picture, but I will do my best as I would have done if I'd seen this when it released. It's worth stating that I have no training or experience with psychological evaluation. I have a degree in creative writing, so I tend to focus on specific words used, but the English captions and translations may have mistakes. I also don't have a perfect understanding of Japanese culture, so please be kind if I misunderstand things. Finally, these are just my theories and opinions. MILGRAM is designed to be complex and confusing, more about the debate than the answer. With that in mind, I welcome other opinions, but keep it friendly, and remember, no Trial 2 spoilers. Today we'll be looking at Prisoner 2, so content warning. Aside from the fact we're talking about a killer in inverted commas, today's episode will contain discussion about suicide, prostitution which may also be underage, possible sexual violence, and abortion. Personally, I believe in a woman's right to choose, but even if you disagree, make sure any discussion in the comments is civil. Prisoner number 2, Ako Kagure, Yuno. It's not just me who sees it, right? Anyway, I will be perfectly honest, I have rather consistently misjudged this one. Yuno is an 18-year-old high school girl who spends most of her interrogation running rings around S until they probably accidentally hit upon the right thing to say to get her to relax. She comes across as disconnected or oblivious, seemingly not minding being in prison, but is actually quite observant. Her song seems very clear-cut. She sings about being with someone night and day, someone who annoys her but makes her smile. She's shown going on dates and progressively squeezing a balloon tighter and tighter until it pops. Obviously this is an obsessive girlfriend situation, I thought. And then I found out the song is called Umbilical. Suddenly lines like "I messed up, I found out" make more sense. As I said, I rather consistently got this one wrong, so large parts of my theories are things to which my friends guided me. Have you ever heard of compensated dating? In the West, I think it's better known as sugar dating. In the Japanese context, compensated dating is when a younger girl goes out with an older man for a date and generally more, in exchange for gifts and/or money. This is a very complex and touchy subject that I don't really want to go into, but I have to a bit for context. From my understanding, and again apologies if I'm getting any of this wrong, when compensated dating is discussed, most of the blame goes on the girls and not the men. I tried to look into the legality of prostitution in Japan, but it's strange and I gave up. Suffice to say that women who engage in this activity are judged much more harshly than the men who solicit it. That's important. But what does that have to do with our prisoner, you're probably not asking? Yeah, you see where this is going. In truth, the fact Yuno engaged in compensated dating was almost outright stated in S's song, Contractual Desires. I just didn't take that at face value when I saw it. Yuno is 18, and from what she says in her voice drama and how she says it, it's implied she's been doing this a little while. The age of consent in Japan is 16, the same as the UK, but was still 13 when this released. Yeah, there isn't much evidence for how long this has been going. It seems to have shaped her life philosophy, and most of the character writing in MILGRAM seems realistic, but it is an anime. World-weary teenagers are not unusual. Moving past that, we come to the question of her killing. A young girl with contractual desires whose song is called Umbilical. Combine that with her S-kill, which in context is quite graphic. She either had an abortion or manually triggered a miscarriage. For a project like this, I think it's fascinating they included this. At first, I didn't see why this would be on par with some of the overt murders later on, but it's likely a cultural thing. So, assuming she was essentially a prostitute, got pregnant and aborted it, what is there to discuss? there are a few prisoners for whom the mystery isn't what was their crime, and more what were their circumstances to determine if they should be forgiven. So let's talk about Yuno. She's a nice girl, very friendly, very easy to get along with, and that's because she's experienced in befriending strangers, and I don't mean that as a euphemism. The number of date pictures means she did go on actual dates with these men. When she's interacting with S, she controls the conversation, but in a way that gets S to talk. It's a very subtle control, disarming them to lower their barriers, then allowing them room to speak. She then finds something they say to latch onto to continue the conversation. She flirts casually, but is very observant and able to call up that information when she needs it. The big mystery around Yuno is to do with temperature. It's not really temperature, but that's the theme used in the VD and the song. She talks about chilling memories, how she never got warmth from judgmental people. S says she has a cold expression, a cold self, and a frozen heart. And these are spread out, they're not all together. And a line in the song is about reloading the warmth. My first instinct was some sort of nymphomania. When she's on her own, the warmth fades, so she has to constantly reload it. But towards the end of the VD, when S expresses a sort of acceptance of Yuno whatever she's done, she said it made her feel warmer. That leads me to believe it's emotional comfort rather than purely sexual. If she's been doing this dating thing for a while, it's possible those around her know about it, or at least she knows how they'd react. In particular, she mentions how she hates people who preach Seishinron more than anything, which is the idea that any hardship can be overcome with willpower. This implies she has gone through hardship and sought advice only to be told, tough it out. What was her hardship? Statistically, there's the possibility it was some kind of sexual violence. I don't know that there's any evidence for that, I don't think I know what to look for, and something tells me it's not the case, both when S admitted they hit Haruka, and when they implied a threat to hit Yuno, she was not scared at all. To reiterate, I have no training in evaluation, but that feels relevant. Whatever the hardship was, it left her with a void of needing comfort, needing to feel special. Her father left at an early age, so maybe she feels abandoned or unloved like Haruka. She's decided to fill that void by dating older men and being paid in numerous gifts. Quick change of gear. Last episode I mentioned that it's possible the MILGRAM prisoners aren't alive, or that some of them aren't. Currently, Yuno is the only one I think isn't. I first got this suspicion in S's VD due to Jackalope, the mythological creature who actually knows what's going on, using different tenses for different prisoners. He says that prisoner 4 needs to pass on her beautiful genes, yeah, dodgy, but he also says that prisoner 2, Yuno, was a young woman. Remember, the translations aren't certain and the auto-captions are meaningless here. It could be a mistranslation, it could be Jackalope outright stating she was a young woman and then died. The other evidence for this theory, which is one my friends believe, I don't think is evidence. Yuno is associated with stairs. Spiral staircases feature very centrally in her song, and the still shot in S's song is of Yuno on a balcony next to stairs. Towards the end of Umbilical, the spiral stairs shatter, and she falls. This could be how she triggered her miscarriage, choosing to do it the hard way rather than the method that would involve people judging and lecturing her. It could also be how she died. The reason I don't think she died from it is twofold. Firstly, the language doesn't line up. She admits some people would see what she did as murder, but that doesn't feel fitting if she also died from it. Admittedly, there's the likelihood she's unaware she's dead, so maybe that issue is moot. Secondly, in the song, she's fine afterwards. She catches a balloon, which I believe represent her clients or sex life or possibly even her womb, and it's empty. See, all the balloons in the song are empty until after the line "I messed up, I found out," at which point the balloon she's holding has stuff in it, including a heart. That's the representative of the fetus. Then she slips, falls off the stairs, and grabs an empty balloon. The fetus is gone. She lands safely, and there are more stairs. One could argue it's done that way to be ambiguous or confusing, but that landscape is virtually featureless. Compare that to Haruka's song, which is so jam-packed with imagery that it's hard to tell what the important parts are. Umbilical isn't like that. It's minimal in its abstract imagery. It's possible the fact the stairs are distant implies she's giving up the compensated dating, but I'd argue the fact that they're there at all means she survived. Maybe something happened after that and that changed, but I don't think the stairs she used in her crime killed her. Before I give my verdict on Yuno, let's quickly talk about S. From the Haruka and Yuno interviews, I was impressed with S's interrogation techniques. They seemed to adapt relatively quickly to try and draw them out. For Haruka, they offered solidity and stability, but also firmness. For Yuno, they offered no judgment of her life choices, only her crimes. She responded well to that. Not meaning to spoil, but this impressive start drops off hard. On my first watch through, I put this down to one of the prisoners getting into S's head and throwing them off, but on a rewatch, I don't think they ever had it. I mentioned earlier that it seemed more like luck that S hit upon something that worked with Yuno. In both Haruka and Yuno's interrogations, S isn't so much adapting to the prisoners to best interrogate them, and more trying to reinforce their own position, and in doing so, glancing off a weak point. Haruka was withdrawn out of fear of being abandoned. S said, "I'm not going to abandon you, this is my job." That made Haruka happy. Yuno was evasive and controlled the conversation to avoid opening up and being judged. S said, "I don't care about your choices, I'm here to judge your crimes." That made Yuno happy. In both cases, S wasn't adapting to anything, they were a block of stone refusing to yield. In both cases, they resorted or considered resorting to violence almost immediately despite saying they didn't intend to. Long story short, they're not a good interrogator. That'll become very apparent in the rest of Trial 1. S is also strangely concerned about their appearance. They got very worked up when Yuno said they weren't intimidating. This could be because S is 15, younger than any of the prisoners, and therefore desperate to prove their authority. That was what prompted S to almost resort to violence. Back to Yuno. She's a teenage girl who engaged in prostitution, possibly with numerous men over who knows how long. She made a mistake and got pregnant. She likely then chose to terminate the pregnancy in a very dangerous way, possibly throwing herself down some stairs rather than seeking a medical alternative. She doesn't regret it. The community voted 51% in favour of innocent. I am stunned it was that close. Maybe people interpreted it as killing a born baby, maybe they just disagreed with the act at all. This is the second closest result in Trial 1. I don't know if you heard it, but throughout this video, whenever I've said Yuno's killing and crimes, I've said it with inverted commas. As I stated up top, I believe in a woman's right to choose. I may not agree with her lifestyle choices or the method she used, but frankly that's immaterial. She didn't kill anyone. I think Yuno is innocent. These videos are coming in longer than I expected. Again, I planned to cover 2 prisoners in this one, but I guess I had too much to say. Frankly, this one isn't a topic I'm all that comfortable talking about, so the fact I've done a whole video on it just shows how highly I think of MILGRAM. All MILGRAM voice dramas, songs, and interrogation questions are available entirely free, linked in the description. I don't find Umbilical as catchy as Haruka's song Weakness, but it's still a well-made song and music video. Make sure you subscribe for my videos on the rest of Trials 1 and 2, and leave your thoughts, opinions, and takes in the comments below. Just remember, be polite, and no Trial 2 spoilers. I look forward to hearing what you think. Thank you very much for watching, please consider pledging to my Patreon linked in the description, and I will catch you later.